Well, hey, y'all. Welcome back to Crissy's Clucky Chronicles and CrissyOShow.com, where today we peck at the past with a side of Southern sass. Oh, yeah. I'm your host, Crissy, and I'm coming at you today from my cozy coop here in eastern North Carolina, where the rain's pouring down like a blessing from above, honey. And speaking of blessings, today we're diving into something near and dear to every true Southerner's heart, the history of tea, and how that humble leaf turned into the nectar of the gods. Yes, the unforgettable Southern sweet tea. Now, don't worry if the skies is gray outside. I ain't worried about that, and you shouldn't be worried about that either. Just grab yourself a glass of the good stuff or a coffee, whatever you got. Let's settle in with your feathered friends. Let's brew up some good stories. Because this Chronicle's going to be just as refreshing as a porch swing on a summer evening watching lightning bugs. And we're going to aim to wrap this up in maybe about 20 minutes or so. So, give a cluck or two. Anyway, let's hop off and talk about the history of the wonderful Southern sweet tea, babies. First off, let's hop way back to where it all began, because every good tale needs roots deeper than a live oak. Now, tea just didn't mosey on over to our southern tables, okay? It started its journey clear across the world in ancient China. According to legend, around 2737 BC, there was this wise old emperor named Qian Nung. I reckon that's how you say it. I don't know. My redneck accent fails me sometimes. But Qian Nung, he was a feller who fancied himself sort of a scientist and a ruler, kind of all rolled into one. Now, one fine day, he's sitting under a tree boiling some water to make it safe for drinking. Because y'all know back then water could be trickier than a fox in a hen house. You know what I mean? Well, wouldn't you know it? A few leaves from the camellia, whatever that other thing is, but it's one of them camellia trees that kind of fluttered down into his pot. Now, this Qian Nung, being the curious type of feller he was, he took him a sip, and bam! He discovered tea. How about that? Now, at first, it wasn't no fancy beverage, okay? Folks used it like medicine. They would chew the leaves or brew the leaves, and it would just cure what ailed you. And they had a plethora of things that would cure, like headaches to tummy troubles. Just a lot of different things that would help. But now, over the centuries, during the Shang Dynasty and beyond, tea literally evolved into a proper drink, with folks just kind of mashing it into cakes or bricks, making it easy for travel. Now, by the Tang Dynasty around the 8th century A.D., tea was the talk of the town, honey. Poets wrote about tea, emperors sipped tea, and it spread like wildfire all throughout China. Heck, they even had tea ceremonies that were more elegant than a debutante ball. Now, tea, well, it didn't stay put in China forever, honey. It hitched a ride with these Buddhist monks to Japan in the 9th century, where it became like a cornerstone of their Zen rituals. So think about matcha, that green powder that's all the rage these days. Personally, I don't like it, but to each his own, honey. We don't judge here. But the real global adventure, all of this kicked off in like the 16th century when Portuguese explorers, they were sailing the seas for like spices and silk. They brought this tea back to Europe. Now let me tell you, Those folks in Lisbon were the first Europeans to get a taste. But let me tell you, it was the Dutch who turned it into big business in the early 1600s, shipping it all over the place. Now, by the 1610 time frame, tea was making its way to France and England, though it was pricey as all get out. The only high society types could really actually afford it. And then, in 1662, something real special happened. Old Catherine of Braganza, a Portuguese princess, honey, she married King Charles II of England. Now, she brought her love of tea to the royal court, and boom, suddenly, it was the height of fashion. There was afternoon tea parties popping up everywhere with scones and sandwiches, and the British East India Company, they started importing tea by the boatload. Tea at that point became so British that by the 18th century, they were drinking more of it than ale. But bless their hearts, honey, they taxed it something fierce, which led to all sorts of smuggling and shenanigans way back yonder. All right, y'all, let's cross the pond a little bit and talk about how tea landed in America, 'cause that's what we're talking about, right? Southern sweet tea, okay? Because that's where our Southern story is really going to heat up, or should I say cool us down, because it is ice sweet tea. You get my drift. Anyway, tea first showed up in the colonies around 1650 thanks to Dutch settlers in New Amsterdam, which we now call New York. It caught on quick among the well-to-do, and by the 1700s, tea houses were popping up in Boston and Philadelphia like daisies in the spring. Now, folks was drinking it hot, British style, with a bit of milk or sugar if they could swing it. But oh, honey, things got heated, literally. In 1773 with the Boston Tea Party. Do y'all remember that one? Was y'all taught that one in school? If you didn't, please go look that up and read about it. So these colonists, they was fed up with King George's taxes on tea. They dressed up as Native Americans and dumped 342 chests of the tea stuff into Boston Harbor. It was a protest that helped spark the American Revolution, and for a spell after independence and these patriotic Americans, they shunned tea in favor of coffee, which I personally love. I love coffee. But tea kind of snuck back in, especially down south where the climate was kinder to growing of it. Now, speaking of the South, let's cluck our way to the heart of the matter, okay? How sweet tea became our unofficial house wine. So as it turns out, South Carolina plays a starring role here, honey. So in the late 1700s, a French botanist named André Michaux, maybe that's how you pronounce it, I don't know. But anyway, we're still going to call him André. He brought the first tea plants to America, planting them in Charleston, with dreams of just satisfying the fancy tastes of these wealthy folks. Now, by 1795, South Carolina became the first place in U.S. to grow tea commercially. Oh, and get this, it's the only state that's ever produced it on a big scale. How about them apples or tea leaves? Anyway, those early plants took root at places like Middleton Place Gardens, and even today there's a tea plantation in Charleston that's been churning out leaves since the 1800s. But back then, tea was mostly green, and folks drank it hot or used it in punches. All right, y'all, now here's the twist that's making it southern, okay? That's where ice and sugar come in, y'all. The South's got that sweltering heat. Y'all hear me talk about it all the time on the vlogs on Crissy's Clucky Chronicles here. We got summers hotter than a jalapeno in July. So what happened was folks started chilling their tea as early as the 1800s. The first printed recipe for iced tea popped up in 1879 in a cookbook called Housekeeping in Old Virginia. But cold tea drinks go back a little bit further. So in the early 19th century, there were tea punches where it was mixing green tea with sugar, citrus, and often a splash of liquor. You know, just think Regency-era cocktails served at garden parties kind of thing. After the Civil War, black tea from India and the now Sri Lanka became cheaper and more available, and it was replacing the green stuff. And sugar, well, the South had plenty thanks to cane plantations in Louisiana and Florida. A brilliant inventor named Norbert Rouleau, a free man of color from Louisiana, revolutionized sugar refining in 1843 with a mechanical process that made it cheaper and purer. So suddenly, sweetening your drinks won't just for the rich. Now, the real boom for iced tea came in the late 1800s when refrigeration made ice accessible to everyday folks like me and you. There's no more waiting for ice harvests from northern lakes. Ice houses and factories meant you could keep cool like year-round. Then, at 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis, a tea merchant named Richard Blanchardin was selling hot tea on a scorcher of a day. Well, let me tell y'all, nobody wanted it. So he poured it over ice, and folks went absolutely wild. Honey, they lost their minds. They loved it. Now, it wasn't the invention of iced tea, because that was already around. Remember, we talked about that. But it sure popularized it nationwide. Down south, though, we took it a step further. Sweet tea, brewed strong, sweetened while hot so the sugar melts right in. Then it's chilled and served over ice with a lemon wedge if you're feeling extra fancy. Why did this sweet iced tea stick? I mean, why? Why did it stick in the South like honey on a biscuit? Well, darling, it's a perfect storm of history and hospitality. The hot, humid climate made these ice drinks a necessity, not a luxury. Sugar was abundant from local farms. And then you got tea imports. They were flowing through ports like Charleston and New Orleans. During Prohibition in the 1920s, when booze was banned, sweet tea, it just stepped in as the go-to, and it was a go-to refreshment for everybody at social gatherings. There was no alcohol needed to make folks feel welcome. Everybody seemed to have it. There's different types of brewing techniques from West Africa blended into Southern traditions. You got places like Summerville, South Carolina, even claimed to be the birthplace of sweet tea, because in 1890, they planted a big tea farm and started experimenting with cold sweet tea brews for workers in the heat. Everybody's got some type of claim to fame for this wonderful Southern, sweet tea thing. See, I'm just drooling thinking about it. I can't even talk. Now, over time, sweet tea became more than a drink. It's literally like a symbol of Southern charm. You offer it to your guests as soon as they come in the house, because nothing says y'all come back now like a tall glass of fresh, wonderful, ice cold sweet tea, giving it to your folks or your friends, whatever. Now, restaurants, honey, they serve it by the gallon around here. And families have secret recipes passed down like heirlooms. Some like it toothache and sweet, others with just a hint. It just depends on your family and how you was raised to make the stuff. Oh, here's a fun fact for you. In Indonesia, they love their sweet tea too, but ours is uniquely Southern. Ours is often made with black tea bags like Lipton. It's boiled hard and sugared to perfection. And while some folks up north might turn their noses up at it, calling it too sweet, we know it's just right for washing down our fried chicken, collard, or slice of pecan pie in 100-degree weather. Everybody likes it their way, and they like it different. And guess what? Ain't nothing wrong with that. You can drink your sweet tea or your tea unsweet or ever how you like it. That's the beauty of tea. All right, honey, talking about all this tea's making me thirsty, so I need to go make some right now. So we've just covered a lot of ground today, from the ancient emperors to modern mason jar sweet tea. Tea's journey, it's just a reminder that the best things in life start simple and they get better with a little sweetness. So let me tell you, next time you're sipping on that golden elixir, think of that Shin Nung and that Andre and all them Southern souls who made it our staple. Just thank them. And I want to thank y'all for joining me on Crissy's Clucky Chronicles. Stay dry out there in the rain with all this weirdness going on in this type of weather. Keep your coops cozy, and remember, life's too short for some unsweet tea. And until next time, cluck on, y'all. And if you can't be good, I really don't know what else to tell you other than to be good at it. Like and subscribe and join for more. Don't forget to visit us on all forms of social media and the website at ChrissyOShow.com. I heart y'all great big. Let me go get some tea. This made me thirsty.